Hi, guys. Welcome to The Deciding Factor. I am John.
And I'm Alton.
And together, we form this awesome little podcast where we get to have crazy guests on our show. We also have Barbara joining us again. So we welcome you back, Barb. And today's show is actually going to be about the pandemic and how it was handled and who's really to blame on it. So, guys, this is The Deciding Factor.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
Guys, welcome back again. Thanks for joining us for another podcast on The Deciding Factor. Please take a second. Click the subscribe button, also like the video, and check out some of the other things that we have coming, as well as what we've pre-recorded. But for today, I would like to welcome a special guest. He's actually Glenn Klein. He's from Tampa Bay, Florida. He's a author, life coach, podcaster, award-winning radio talk show host, and he has one of those deep, sexy voices, if you know what I mean. He's an entrepreneur, a former summer camp owner and director. He is also old enough to not only have 6 kids, but 2 grandkids. He actually just published a book. It's Early Wake Up Call, How a Coach's Early Warnings About the Pandemic Can Help You Now. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Glenn. Thanks for showing up.
Hi, John. How are you?
Oh, don't make a liar of me.
Nailed it.
You put it up on a tee for me, bro. Jeepers.
Yeah,
I'm doing wonderfully.
nice.
How are things in the People's Republic of Austin?
I'll plead the fifth. How about that one?
That's all right. You're entitled. It's still a quasi-free country.
Not
That is
not
nice.
Not in Austin. I don't know.
No, we want the law that your governor just passed, which is no mask. Let us go about our normal lives. And
Yeah,
it's,
Governor Ron DeSantis did not pass that law.
he didn't.
No, but he did open up the state, and now it's up to each individual county and even down to the individual businesses, as it should be, in my libertarian opinion. And so, like for where I live here in Tampa, by the way, the home of the Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay, where I'm at, Lightning. The county still has a mandatory mask situation. I haven't worn a mask once since this whole thing started. And but you go into a box store like Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart Market or whatever. They still have the cute little mask guard there, and it's lovely.
Yeah, they started having officers at some of the Walmarts and everything, especially Sam's Club. And it's no BS. If you don't wear a mask, they want to escort you off the property.
No, well, I don't. They have a mask guard. They don't have, like, I was gonna say legitimate police, but well, they're not police. They're just Walmart employees in a cute little guard uniform, and so it's not their fault that this idiocy has continued since last March. So I don't want to stress them out. So what I do is I put a bandana around my neck and I like put it right up on the top of my beard here, or the beginning of my beard, and nobody says anything, and I just put it down when I get in, and it's just ridiculous.
Huh.
Yeah, mask. I mean, people say, well, it's just like a seatbelt. People wear seatbelts. You wear a seatbelt? And I was like, I wrote a whole blog about this. It's called Masks and Flags. It's at my website at coachglennklein.com, and as well as how this whole book thing started is there too. But I was talking to my dad, who lives in LA, and he is completely against my stance on the pandemic and the way it was handled. He's your typical 84-year-old, just kind of freaked out about dying guy. And my mom, they've been together for 67 years. And he says, like, why won't you wear a mask? And because that's like the dividing line. There's 88% of Americans say they will wear a mask all the time or some of the time. Only 12% will say, I'll never wear one. I'm one of the 12%. You can't get 88% of Americans to agree if the sky is blue, for God's sakes. So
That's interesting.
So what happened is that's how freaked out everybody is, whether the left, right, center, doesn't make a difference. So I heard this come out of my pie hole. I said, Dad, because it's a symbol. That's why. And then it occurred to me, in the same way that the United States flag is, what is a flag? It's a piece of cloth. Big deal, right? But it represents something. It's a symbol. That's why people get torqued off when they burn it, when they disrespect the flag. And so to me, the mask is a symbol. It's just another thing, like mandatory seatbelt wearing, or mandatory you can't smoke, drink, or chew, or hang around with girls that do laws all over the country. Even in Florida, they have you could smoke in bars if they don't serve food. If they do serve food, you can serve as long as your income is generated at a 10% level. Then people can choose to smoke in the establishment and work there, etc. I don't understand why adults can't make a decision for themselves. I will work or not work, or go or patronize a bar or not a bar that allow people to use a perfectly legal product in their place of work and business.
Is that really true, that you don't understand why an adult can't do that? Or are you just wording it that way?
I was just wording it that way, Alton.
Right?
Is it Alton or Alton?
Well, my wife says that it's Alton.
And so if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's what you're saying.
So
Alton, right?
It's Alton, right?
Okay, so, Alton.
I'm not even in on the seatbelts. I'm kind of glad that you brought that up. So we're probably among the 0.5% of people who, I'm like, why in the world is there a seatbelt law? Like, I could probably get somewhat on board with the texting while driving cell phone law, but seatbelts, like,
only because it affects everybody else very clearly, right? Like the statistics clearly show.
But that's what happens with seatbelt laws too. This is a long philosophical discussion. Is that they say if you don't wear a seatbelt, that affects everybody because there's more hospital visits, there's more death, and it's true. But I think it's how we do things. Because we have such a religious mindset in Western culture, especially in the United States, we want to punish people, not reward people, and that's a huge part of the book. It's like we just come and save me. Come and save me, God, aka Dr. Fauci or whomever, Governor Cuomo, Governor Gavin Newsom. Just save me. Just tell me what to do.
I might argue that we've got a lack of religion in the thinking, because if that was the case, then we wouldn't be about punishment. We would actually be about raising intelligent citizens that know how to take care of themselves and the world around them, in which case we wouldn't get these blurred lines as to, whether or not am I loving my neighbor by wearing my mask or by not wearing my mask. We end up with these really squidgy lines, I think, because we've departed so severely from a world of absolutes. Crickets. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
I actually have a cricket sound effect here, guys. I could play that. No, I mean, we could go on. Barbara, are you saying that we should have more punishment?
No, I'm saying I think that it's an incorrect equation to say that because Western culture is historically religious, that it means that we want people punished. I mean, maybe personally, I find it more satisfying if the bad guy gets punished. I like those movies. And that's true. But I think that the larger thing is to look at Western culture now, which is largely not religious. If anything, that we have veered so far, we can't actually have, as just looking at the United States, we can't say that a boy is a boy or a girl is a girl. We've redefined everything. So the further away we get from absolutes, the further away we get from being able to actually have adults make decisions like, is it smart for me to go into a restaurant where they're smoking if I'm an asthmatic? We've taken all the absolutes out.
There have never been any absolutes.
Absolutely sure there've never been any absolutes.
No, not in morality. I mean, it's not, and certainly not since. I guess we'll go down this way. But the podcast I do is called Sex in the Pews, which is celebrating healthy human sexuality and exposing the historic ill effects of religion on a healthy sexual mindset. And so, and I used to be a fundamentalist minister, which I would have agreed with Barb 100%. But morality has never been absolute. Of course not. Morality is constantly changing based on people's desire for more freedom. So, for example, why you seem to be laughing, Barb?
I am laughing. You don't read a lot of Puritans, do you?
I could.
They liked their sex, and they liked their alcohol, and they liked all that stuff. The freedoms.
Oh yeah, they were super. The Puritans burning people at the stake, and they were great. They were.
Yeah, compared to now.
They were super. They were wonderful. No, morality. Of course, morality is not absolute. It was at one point you could have been, and we have some of the greatest historical figures in the world and in this country, slave owners. You could have people in chains because they had more melanin in their skin. Or how about the fact that Barb can be on this podcast with us, having equal rights for women? You realize that women were the property of men for most of history. That morality changed. That morality was absolute seemingly for a long time, and then that changed. So,
but you've got a perception problem here then. The problem isn't that the morals weren't absolute. The problem is that people suck. And you're still in the same position there.
I couldn't disagree more. I think people are amazing. They're just under a religious mindset that says that there's a God waiting to punish them if they do not adhere to what we say is absolute morals. And so, and our mindset shifts to every other bit of authority. So if you don't wear a mask, if you don't adhere to the authority, it's like you are disrespecting or disobeying God. Oh. And I think it's really screwed up everybody. There's all kinds of other reasons that people have complied and gotten to the point of such a nanny state. And with the onset of helicopter parenting, I deal with that all in early wake up call, how we got there. And but I didn't have Barb, talking in my ear, like to say that, that's full of.
My hourly rates are really reasonable, just for what it's worth for your next book.
So let's the seatbelt thing versus the texting thing, though. I think really the big key is the harming of others. So the seatbelt thing, if you don't wear a seatbelt, you get in a wreck, you die. Yeah, you might be talking about financial issues with.
Yeah, but how about this? If you're not wearing a seatbelt, and whether it's the other person's fault or not, and you die because you weren't wearing a seatbelt, they've got to live with that the rest of their lives. That's not just a financial thing.
But there's not a physical issue. Whereas you're texting, like if you were texting and driving, got in a wreck, and you hit me and killed me or hurt me, then you're assaulting me in a way, right? So I think a lot of these laws need to be geared towards how it physically can affect someone, not, financially. That's a civil.
In accidents, there are always consequences, right? And you can paint the statistics to say whatever you want them to, right? Like, yeah, there's these 7 steps, and these are all the issues that caused by this accident, right? Like if I get on my motorcycle, ride it without a helmet, crash and die, you can figure out all of these things. But would it impact people? Sure it would. But to me, the question goes back to which is more harmful, giving me the freedom to make that decision or forcing me to wear that, and then justifying that use of force via the government, right? I mean, that's how we're having to do this, is through fines and force, just like a mob would, and then justifying it instead of looking at it from more of that's what, in my opinion, being part of the 12% as well of people who do not plan on wearing a mask, is that they're using things to twist it. Look, you could have symptoms and then it could affect this. And then what about your mom? Like, I get it.
But they keep switching.
But I don't care. But the thing is, it's like they're trying to justify it. And at the end of the day, personally, I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter to me what statistic you bring to me. It's, call it a flag, a symbol, whatever. I'm like, I'm not doing it, and you can't make me.
So if
I'm gonna take it, baby.
Devil's advocate. So if they actually came out with a statistic that actually is scientifically proven that said 99% of the people will survive if you wear a mask. You're still like, screw that FU.
Yeah. I'm not interested.
Show me the money. Yeah, I would want to see. I would want to see where the study came from, because I think we've had plenty of studies that are. I mean, you can
have
find
anything that actually backs it yet.
Yeah.
Look, if you come in and make a law and say that you got to get on this train and ride into this Nazi concentration camp, not happening. I don't care what your law is, and I think that that's kind of, and Glenn, I don't know if this is what you were trying to say, but what I was thinking is that there's certainly a difference between morality and the laws. And John and I had a podcast about an entire podcast about victimless crimes. Well, what is that even? Right. And thinking into that. So just because government passes some law or some order, our whole entire country was founded on stupid government, right? Like it was the anti of that. And so the Constitution is there so that we don't have to comply. And then even it's constitutional to like take up arms and go shoot your government. Like that's a constitutional thing.
Now, Glenn, we went off on a tangent, but I want to address the biggest thing is when people look at your website and see this show about us talking about COVID and really who's to blame. What is a sex coach going to teach us about this pandemic and what has happened and what you recognized?
How to have some fun when they got a stay-at-home order. That's what I'm going to teach you. I've been a observer of life by profession and by avocation for my entire life. I started my career as a residential summer camp owner and director. I bought my boyhood summer camp. I went to camp there from the time I was 9 in northern Wisconsin. It's called Camp Menominee. And I ran that camp for 15 years. My wife and I bought that when we were 24 years old. It's almost unheard of. Think about that. I'm coming into your home and saying, hi, I just graduated from college. Send me your kids for the entire summer. But for some reason they did. And then that experience is really, if you do a good job as a camp director and an owner, you really are a life coach. And you're a psychologist. And that's why they call them camp counselors. And then we started popping out a bunch of kids. We have 6 kids now, as you said earlier, John. And I didn't pop them out. My now former wife popped them out. And we have 2 beautiful grandchildren. We just celebrated our 37th wedding anniversary, Dawn and I, and we went out and partied and had a great time. And people said, it's not your anniversary. It's like, yeah, 37 years ago. It's the anniversary when we got married. We're the best of friends. And so we ran that camp and raised these kids. And then I've been a full-time life coach for 15 years and morphing into sex and relationship coaching, because I think everything is about sex, everything in life. If you can understand healthy human sexuality, it's called intercourse for a reason. All sex obviously is about relating to yourself and to other people. So is everything else in life. If you can understand and be healthy mentally about sex, then you have a much better chance of really enjoying and having a pretty relatively stable and productive experience on the planet. So it's everything's about communication. And I've always been a communication guy. And I'm a student of history. I love politics. I love sports, because sports and politics, people are competing and having to respond, intercoursing with their opponents, with their supporters, with their teammates, with the media, with whomever in real time. There's so much you can learn about the human condition by just watching athletics and the political situation in any country, locally, nationally, internationally. So I start commenting on this right from the get-go. I'm a libertarian. That's how I evolved. The more freedom, the better. The more freedom and the more individual responsibility. That's, I think, philosophically, that's how human beings are made. That's how we best respond. But there's these things called control freaks. And they've gotten more and more. You're a control freak, John?
I might be a little bit.
All right. Well,
Don't
then
talk to my wife.
What we could do some deep dives into your situation. I'm a reformed control freak. The biggest control freak job on the planet bar none, is to be a resident summer camp owner, because like literally you are literally God. You are like announcing over the North Woods what the children are going to do at any given moment, the counselors what they're going to eat, what time of day. They don't even know what time of day it is unless I tell them. So yeah, I'm a reform control freak, so I understand the mindset very well. But in any case, I start commenting on social media about, as soon as Newsom and Cuomo were starting to talk about shutting things down, I was like, this doesn't make sense right from the get-go. And I got viciously attacked. I mean, by people like former campers of mine who are now grown men and family members. And they're like, what are you talking? And then being called selfish. And so it was so churning around in my brain. And one of the things I tell my clients in my life and sex coaching is whatever's on your brain, don't have it come out of your mouth right away, write it down. So I literally sat down and wrote down this blog called My Response to the Coronavirus Pandemic Crisis, which was a 20-hour project. It's a 20-page blog at coachglennklein.com. But in that blog, I started making predictions based on what I thought would happen, based on, I know based on my experience, life coaching, camp directing, parenting all these years. And then I'm sitting there after I wrote the blog, was like, I was right. How the hell did I know this? I'm not that smart. And then it occurred to me, you guys, that all I had done on the pandemic was overlay my life philosophies that have been very, very successful for my clients and my kids, et cetera, on the pandemic. And I said, there's a book here to help people, no matter what they're going through, whether it be a worldwide health crisis or a personal crisis. And so that's why I wrote Early Wake Up Call.
So you talked about Andrew Cuomo being one of the key points, but if I'm not mistaken, the CDC started having little spits with the president, changing some guidelines back and forth. Then New York decided that they were going to shut down, which was slightly before, I believe, the president and CDC came out and gave shutdown guidelines. Am I on cue here?
Okay, no, California was first. California's always first with everything. Okay. They always say the country. It was Gavin Newsom. You said we're shutting it down. Then Cuomo picked up on it. So you got the left and right coasts. And then Trump, remember, said initially, and so did Fauci. And remember the Surgeon General, don't wear a mask.
Yes, absolutely.
These are who we're supposed to trust, these people. Yeah, blindly, by the way.
For it.
Pardon me?
They even had scientific backing for not wearing a mask.
Right.
To do it.
But here, what I say in the book is once Trump saw Newsom and Cuomo getting a little bit more, maybe just as much airtime as he was getting, they're like, oh, I got to get in front of this because I need to be on television 24/7. And then the stock market started tanking. And that's when he realized it might jeopardize his reelection. And of course, with Donald J. Trump, it's all about him. 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, 365. All I had to do was see the first debate to know he literally made that. Biden was trying to make it about Trump, and Trump just was happy to let him and participate in it. So then the snowball started where you had the Republicans led by the president and the left. Remember, they were like kind of buddy there for a second. They were talking, oh, the president's doing all these good things. And then it just became, that's how you get 88% of the people freaked out. And you could take rational, logical, smart people, and if you scare them enough, then the natural fight or flight response takes over. They'll do anything to save their lives, even do illogical, irrational, not even think, just authority. Tell me what to do. And that's how I did the book. That's why I did the book.
So you're saying all this came down to communication is really what kind of flows with all your life coaching and sex talk.
Yeah, well, everything's about communication. First of all, what we call self-talk, what we tell ourselves, everybody's got a running loop in their head. So how do you interrupt? How do you splice that ongoing tape with things that are really actually more rational, healthy for you, more holistic, your true self, actually, not what's happening to you. I do a whole thing in the book about how the fact that we're not human doings, we're human beings, and what that all means, and how that brings peace of mind. When you stay centered, you do the mindfulness practice. There's all kinds of different ways to call it. You do the inner shadow work, meditation, however you want to articulate it. You have to deal with your own inner demons, if you will. I don't think they're actual demons, but I'm just using that as a to coin a phrase there. But when you do that, it clears out the toxins. and of your thinking. And then you can start thinking rationally and logically, like saying, it doesn't make any sense to put sick people with healthy people. It's the first time in history that we quarantine healthy and sick people together. I mean, and then now for people like me that have a historical background and understand history, for example, I knew that in 1918, in the Spanish flu pandemic, it was 60 million people worldwide died from that thing. And the government hid the information from the United States because we were getting geared up for a thing called the World War I, the war to end all wars. And they didn't want the soldiers to tell them that, hey, the Spanish flu, where you're going to sorry about that, where you're going to die. I just edited myself. Where you're going to die. That's how comfortable I am, John. It's just I just dropped it. Do we have to stop and go back?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. So where you're going to go die, we don't want you to know that because we don't want you to die, to know that you may die from a flu here. There was so many people sick that they had to take care of people outside. You see the pictures. And then they found out in the aftermath that actually the patients that were treated out of doors actually got better faster. Why? Because of fresh air and vitamin D and but remember this, stay home, stay safe, save lives.
This is the thing for me. Look, I went down to the beach. Okay. And this is here in Texas. They've got bulldozers bulldozing sand up. So like you can drive on the beach here in Texas and drive on the sand there. And they had bulldozers bulldozing all the sand up on the roads to enter to go to the beach. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything. Okay. But at what planet are we living on when the government gets to decide people can't go to the beach? I'm like, I just can't comprehend that. I don't care if there was a volcano erupting and going to pour, lava over the beach. Let people go if they want to go. Like, I don't get it.
Now, I actually have a question for you, Barb. I don't know much of what happened in Washington during the beginning of this pandemic. Did y'all fully shut down? What kind of idiotic moves did they make? Because I think you're from a blue state, right?
Yeah, our Governor Inslee is basically Newsom light. He has the thought after the fact, like, yep, that was really smart. We should totally do that. Yeah, we had total shutdown for a couple months, longer than a couple months. Things are still not totally back open. We're in like phase 2 for most of the state, and his latest thing was to put a pause on no phases moving, until we've cured death. So once we cure death, and then the election happens, then I suspect we'll hear he likes making proclamations. But yeah, we had full shutdowns.
See, that's the thing. Like, I'm listening to Trump and Biden in this discussion, and I'm hearing Biden blame people dying of a virus, natural and or synthetically created in China, and somehow that's Trump's fault. And I'm just sitting there watching it with my kids, and then the debate's over, and my 10-year-olds, here comes the spin doctors, right? And I'm like, so pay attention, girls. They're going to tell you what to think about what you just heard and saw, and they're like, oh yeah, and like had to explain to them the whole spin doctor thing. But it's just interesting. And I'm reminded about the the Dark Knight, Batman. See, I do watch some TV.
You do watch some TV. That's pretty good. Good reference.
You're gonna bring in the Dark Knight.
Hey, listen though, this is totally relevant. Now, I haven't seen the Joker version. Supposedly, I need to watch that one. But the one where the Joker's in it, and he's talking about all the politics and the cops, they want their control when there like really is no control. And that's what I see happening with all these politicians and people. The politicians say, I'm going to shut down these businesses and I'm going to save everybody from this natural disaster. And people are all like, I need to save myself from this natural disaster. Somebody says wear a mask, so I'll do it. And it's about trying to control something that I think is like a little out of your reach to do with a mask or some executive order.
So I am curious, Glenn, though. So, okay, so we've established that the world's gone mad, and there's probably movies about that. But I'm curious, like, so from where we are right here, what are you telling people in your life coaching? What are you telling people to do in your book or on your blog right where they are now, assuming that we don't actually run the world?
Well, first of all, I'm a little freaked out. Alton, are you telling us that you had your 10-year-olds watching that debate? That's borderline. That's borderline child abuse right there.
I know. I was not expecting what happened. That is true. I'm like, oh, this is how mature adults act, kids.
You too could be president of the United States someday.
Yeah.
Just be an a-hole, and you can just it'll be great for you. Just look. Remember how we told you how to respect and treat people kindly and politely. See, you too could be president. Barb,
Yes.
Your question is, what should we be doing now?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, like, I think I get the principle behind definitely what you see at the beginning of the pandemic. I follow what you saw. I'm just wondering, what would you tell someone now? So we're sitting here, we're having mask mandates put on us. The world is getting progressively smaller, right? We're trying to find more restrictions for everything. What is your approach right now?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that everybody, certainly you three and everybody that's watching, understands I don't think the world is going to hell in a handbasket at all. I just think this particular thing and the particular, for example, presidential candidates that we have right now are really ineffective. And I think, in fact, I know things are getting better worldwide. The fact that we are concerned about people that we've never been concerned about. The fact that people are making the argument that not wearing a mask somehow shows that you're a bad person, that is literally a counterfeit reaction to what is in all human hearts. We actually are one. The world is so small. We are impacted. Look how quickly the world unified behind wearing a mask. Now that to me, that was an ineffective thing to do, but it's a symbol again, or a sign of what we can do together when we put our minds together, if a good case is made for doing something that will help people. Now, this was just a domino effect that happened. China closed things down, South Korea closed things down, Japan. By the way, the Asian countries, the masks that we used to see in the United States were basically people from Asia, because they've been compliant. They're from compliant societies. And I love when people say, well, in Japan or in New Zealand or in wherever. I was like, hey, this isn't Europe. We left Europe. Our ancestors left Europe. This is a different predecessor or a successor group. That's why we left, because we didn't want to adhere to that stuff.
They don't have a concept.
It's all this stuff is in the book, but the bottom line is this. I should go get a bottle of it. Everybody on the planet should have a bottle of raw extract oregano oil. It is a known pathogen killer. I've had Dr. Cass Ingram on my show, Sex in the Pews, many, many times. But back before anybody had ever heard of coronavirus, I was doing a daily talk show in Milwaukee, and he sent me one of his 30 books, or his publicity people did. And I started interviewing him, and I found this guy fascinating. So then I went and visited him in his office in Chicago. It's called North American Urban Spice, and it's incredible. But it's raw extract oregano oil. He cured himself from HIV in the early 90s. He was a physician. He got pricked with an HIV positive needle before they were taking precautions. And he had happened to be in Turkey. And this guy in the mountains of Turkey said, you Americans, you don't know anything. And so then his first book was The Cure is in the Cupboard. So anyway, it's raw extract oregano. Their particular brand is called Oreganol. But I've been taking it for years. And it is a known pathogen killer. If you get sick, I got my entire family, my aforementioned parents who are completely against all this stuff, I got them a bottle. I said, just in case. And he has one story after another, does Dr. Ingram, about people that were severely ill with COVID that did fine. In fact, he's got one story about a guy, a pharmacist in Boston, who was like literally on his deathbed. And he superdosed the oregano and some other things. And he got very much better quickly, and that was totally fine. And he told Dr. Ingram, you can share my story, but don't tell anybody who I am, because I'll lose everything. They'll fire me if they find out that I got healed through something that we don't sell. And so that's what I would do. I would have everybody on the planet have a bottle of oregano. You forget this stimulus checks, forget that, and then actually get personally responsible for your own health. And understand
whoa.
Oh my God! Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I had to go back there. Okay, but you said oregano oil because like what could it hurt or why not? But isn't that exactly what people say about masks? Like, wouldn't you do it if it could help somebody? How is it different?
Because you're actually ingesting something that kills a pathogen.
So like if I eat my mask, it's the same. It sounds really similar to me though. Like we're holding on to some Dumbo's feather that will cure it. It doesn't seem like, I mean, you're talking about the world being united and with the underlying thoughts that we share. But hasn't all of this exposed that the underlying problem that we share is that we're terrified to die?
Yes.
We have people that don't know what to do with that.
Yes, and I deal a lot with about that very specific thing in the book. People don't want to die. They're way more freaked out about dying now than they used to be. Give me liberty or give me death. I mean, it was just like, that's how important freedom was. Give me liberty or I'll just put a mask on. Exactly. Or I just don't want to die. And I go into, now of course it's theoretical, but I go into great detail in the book of how we went from give me liberty or give me death, or we have nothing to fear but fear itself, or ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, to I feel your pain. Or Trump is like, I'm not responsible. How do you go from Harry Truman saying the buck stops here, see this, I'm responsible, to Trump saying I take no responsibility? And and Trump is not the problem. Trump is the symptom of where our society has gone. And so you got that, and so here we are. Yes, Alton, Biden blaming people dying on Donald Trump. I mean, it's absurd. And and you've got people on the left and the Democrats going, "Yeah, Joe, you tell them." I mean, that is absurd. And so we have what we have. But I actually think, in fact, I know statistically we're getting better at living. We've got freedom and equal rights for LGBTQ people. We've got civil rights. We got women's rights. By the way, we are killing each other at a lesser rate due to warfare than at any time in human history. You talk about morality not being absolute.
Maybe it's because maybe we've gotten better at killing each other in more subtle ways.
Well, I hear that. Can we turn this intern off now? She's making too many good points.
Problem.
We try, but she figures out how to keep her on here.
No, but we because our morality has changed. We don't drop atomic bombs just, okay, we're just going to drop an atomic bomb. We don't go in and just level a Dresden or a Nagasaki or Hiroshima anymore because our morality changed. That's a good thing.
We've got drones for that. Okay. I don't know. I don't think I buy what you're saying.
Well, apparently not. So just keep doing it.
I'm ready for you to convince me, though. You're
not going to be. It's not a really convincing thing. It's throwing out different thoughts to spark conversation and to provoke other thoughts. The fact of the matter is, we're killing each other at a lesser rate than a warfare do at any time in history. Period.
But
whether it be with drones or anything else.
But despite that, other things have spiked, right? Because we've been in these lockdowns. There's been more suicides. I mean, shoot, there's Alton at our high school that our kids go to. They had 2 suicides in the last 3 months.
Well, that's why I was so against the response. I realized right away that obesity, diabetes, domestic violence, alcoholism, drug addiction, suicide were going to go up like crazy. Because I understand people, and that's exactly what was happening right from the get-go. That's actually what said I got to write the book, because you've got to realize that what you are feeding your ears and your eyes. By the way, when did we ever have a scoreboard of death before? A scoreboard of death. We could have had that before. If they would have had a scoreboard of death for the flu season every year, people would have freaked out about the flu. Or for suicides. What if they had a suicide scoreboard of death? They'd be or how about they never have a scoreboard for the death due to opiates? I mean, it's just somebody thought of this, you guys, and then they were like, "That's a good idea." All these things. I don't think this is a pandemic. I can't stand conspiracy theories. I don't think human beings are smart enough to conspire to do something like this. They just But the dominoes started falling, and we're all lemmings. We just follow the leader. Somebody on MSNBC or CNN or Fox or who the hell knows where said, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should list the cases." It's like a scoreboard. It's like the New York Stock Exchange. You know how people are glued to what the market's doing every day or what my favorite team's doing? We'll do that for death. Woo!
So then let's go back to your thought process behind everything dealing with communication.
Right.
Let's start looking at when it started tearing down, who it went between, and what really sparked it. I mean, was it the CDC talking to the president? Was it the governors? What do you take?
Well, when you have a president that is as dumb as Donald Trump, this is what you get. I mean, everything that Trump has done and headed, whether it be his corporations, his casinos, it doesn't make a difference. It turns out like this. And now here we are. He needed to be able to challenge his own CDC, Trump could never have done it, but a leader needs to be able to say, no, wait a minute, maybe we should not just be talking about washing hands and a vaccine down the road. Maybe we should bring in people, because this is stressful, stress management experts. Since we're homeschooling, maybe we should bring in homeschooling experts and put them before the public. So maybe we should bring some holistic doctors and say, all right, here's what the medical doctors are saying, but here's some things you could, maybe instead of just staying home, since we're going to shut down, maybe here's a great national diet. We are going to try to lose 1 billion pounds in the next 3 weeks. These are all things you can do to build your immune system. So it started with Trump, the CDC, Fauci, they're just political animals. And I'm not going to trust the government. George Carlin used to say, he says his first rule is trust nothing the government says. Just start there. Trust nothing they say, and then we'll see what pans out. We know that these guys lie left and right. They get it wrong more times than they get it right. And usually the advice they give ends up turning out to be making things worse or presenting new problems.
So let me argue that with you. So back in the very beginning, when they first discovered that hydrochloroquine was going to be a solution to this, there was a doctor up in Dallas that started giving it to all of her clients. It actually started saving lives, according to her. She even blasted it all over YouTube. What did they do? They didn't want her communicating
or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they didn't want to, give her the mic and let her talk. They wanted to shut her up. So to the point you just made, let's get all these experts out there. No, that's BS, because they tried to shut other people up that didn't meet what, in my opinion, the left really wanted it to be.
Well, no, you're talking about different things, John. You're talking about what happened and what should have happened and where it went off the rails.
Okay.
Things have become so politicized in this country that if Trump's against it, the Democrats are for it. If Trump's for it, the Democrats are against it. He mentioned, what is it? Hydrochloroquine, whatever it is.
Yeah.
He mentioned it. We got to be against it because Trump's for it, even if it helps. I mean, yeah. They just signed a peace treaty. Israel just signed a peace treaty with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, which is an incredible accomplishment. I support us moving our embassy from Tel Aviv to Israel's actual capital of Jerusalem. And I guarantee you there are a lot of, especially liberal Jewish people, who agree with that. But you can't agree with it because Trump's for it. Trump did it. That is not intellectually honest or consistent. That lacks integrity. That's the society we have right now. But don't worry, Barb. It's always darkest before the dawn.
No, I don't think we're darkest.
A new day is coming. Well, I know you don't because
way too far to go. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So, okay. So then what about, let's go to the idea of Trump should have fired Fauci. Then what? John, we can't. You can't do. Trump should have fired Fauci. Why not?
Trump wasn't going to do anything except make sure that he was on television. You could talk about what happened and analyze what happened, but not what Trump should have done. Trump wasn't going to do anything different than what he did, ever. Fauci was never going to do anything different than what he did. Fauci has been there for 35 years. You don't get to stay in a position in that kind of city and not be a political animal. And he sounds reasonable. He sounds smart. He sees, he cuts a good jib. He looks very grandfatherly. But no, what should have happened if, with a different president or with even a different media, is that people should have said, listen, we are going to present all the information, not just how many people are dying, but how many people are getting well. Or here's a really good modality, because we're finding out that people that have comorbidities are the ones, people that are obese. If you want to do something for yourself to help protect yourself in case you do get COVID-19, lose 10 pounds. That'll help you. No, they didn't do any of that stuff. But ultimately, this is how it's going to be. I mean, in our lifetimes, we're just going to keep repeating this, less and less freedoms. So the reason I wrote Early Wake Up Call is that even in the middle of this kind of mass insanity, you can take care of yourself. You can take care of your family. You can walk through this with joy and love and a sense of humor. Sense of humor is a huge part. I'd be making jokes about this. People are like, how can you joke about this? I said, how can you not joke about this? This thing is insane. It's insanely funny. Oh, people are dying. Yes. By the way, we've been on, how long have we been on right now?
Like 45 minutes.
Okay. But you know how many people worldwide have died in these 45 minutes?
Well, no, because we're talking to you. I'm not counting.
We're not watching the counter.
Where's the scoreboard?
I mean, what do you think the number is?
Thousands, of course. People die all the time. People died now. Somebody just died now. And somebody was born now. And somebody just died now. This is the ebbs and flows of natural life. We freak out about this thing, and we can't if you can't joke about the kind of the idiotic sheeple, people have become sheeples. Just tell me where to go. Tell me where to go. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to take.
I think that one of the things that I notice, and maybe Glenn, you see this in your life coaching, is that, well, one truth that I believe is that you see what you want to see, right? Whatever you focus on, you see. And so it seems to me that a lot of people are geared and they have a habit, their loop, their program is surrounds itself around fear and freaking out. And that's just where they live. They want to live in this cocoon of safety, right? Like you talk about being an entrepreneur. Most people, not entrepreneurs. I want this paycheck to hit my bank every Friday. Not even every 2 weeks. That's too long. Definitely not going to take a risk to pursue something on my own. And then you have maybe 12% of people who are independent thinkers. They may be a little more risk tolerant, perhaps. I'm asking myself, like, why is that? Why is it that have a nation full of like power hungry politicians, and like the rest of people are just looking to be told what to do? Because I agree with you, Glenn. I think it's totally possible that we can have a better mental state throughout any type of adversity. But like, do you have any thoughts on why in the world we're here today, 2020? And that,
yeah, absolutely. It's because we are products of our genetics. You guys ever hear of a guy named Carl Zimmer? He's a geneticist. He wrote an amazing book called She Has Her Mother's Laugh. It's an 800-page book, but you want to read. And she's a great writer too. I mean, it's very entertaining. It's very insightful. And I've been saying it for years, but I had no scientific background for it. It just was logical to me that most things are genetically based. And he makes an incredible case for it. So even the inclination to want to be more free or to think more entrepreneur like thoughts, and but the human beings really haven't changed that much. You can always break things down in any group or society or even family, but certainly a nation, a company. It's 30%, 30%, 30%. 30% of the people are for it. 30% of the people are, even in this group that we have here, you could figure that out pretty easily. 30% of the people are for it. 30% of the people are against it genetically. It's just how you come out of your mama. 30% are for, 30% are against. And that middle third is the way that things go. So, for example, in this country during the Revolutionary War, about a third of the colonies and the colonials wanted to rebel from Great Britain. A third did not want to because it was like that. They're the authority. We got to pay. We got to respect the king. And a third were like, yeah, I don't care either way. But it was because we had great leaders and great communicators like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. They were able to sway that middle third, and then even the bottom third is affected by that. Well, it's true today. You have the middle third, or the bottom third, was against the way that the pandemic. Obviously, the percentages can vary, and the middle third is like, all right, who's going to make the better case? The top third now, that was for pushing the pandemic, they're the ones that are responsible. It's much more difficult to rebel against King George or against King Cuomo or King Trump or King Fauci than it is to have a situation where, well, you're in favor of the authority. I mean, they're the ones in the power. I mean, they wouldn't have been. It's the first thing people always say. What's your credentials, Glenn Klein? What's your credentials? So I have to have a whole part of the book about what my credentials are, because it's really important that you have letters after your name, or that. Well, how would he stay there for 35? How did Donald Trump become president? I mean, he became president. Does that mean that everything that he thinks or says or the way he behaves, that's our role model? No. Think for yourself. So anyway, the point, Alton, is that I think most things are genetically based, which people always say to me, that's a very bizarre thing for a life coach to think, because all I want to do is help people. And so then I think I can help anybody. That's what I think.
Well, you teach common sense, right?
Well, I think you can make a case for common sense, but my point is that I don't know who is genetically predisposed to walking more in freedom, walking more in rational thought, walking more in true love and acceptance and with humor. I don't know who those people are. So I have a platform to do that. I might meet a homeless guy on the street. Just something that I say to him might be and listen, people that are on their game, so to speak, a lot of people, I mean, I've struggled tremendously in my life with mental illness and financially and other things. But I also genetically, I had in me, I just don't want to quit. So I don't know who the person that I'm talking to is going to be the next person to go from being homeless to, a cure for cancer or whatever the hell. So I'm just out there promoting the life-giving and pleasure-giving. That's the name of my parent company's Life and Pleasure Communications. The life and pleasure producing thoughts and modalities that I have found very successful, and to see if we can do some damage against divisiveness and hatred and bigotry and hunger and stupidity, frankly, and a lack of common sense, John, like you said.
So I guess y'all have any final questions before we do the deciding factor?
You're like an upside down Calvinist. I kind of love it. You're like, no, I think it's predestined. I just don't know who is actually.
I don't know. I don't think it's predestined. I don't think it's. No, don't put those words. I'm not a Calvinist at all. I am anti-Christianity 100%.
It was a joke.
Yeah, but I just want. I don't. But right here at the end, we're going to say, people don't even know what Calvinist is. Most of the people that are listening.
I do, and I'm telling you, you're not one. It's fine.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
So, all right, let's do the
triggered.
Took me an hour, but okay.
It was hard to get out of the cult of Christianity for me. Let me tell you, I was in it for 10 years. It was hard to escape Christianity, but I did.
All right. Well, let's.
A Calvinist would be able to explain why to you, but that's okay.
What?
Sorry. A Calvinist would be able to say why it was funny.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
All right. So the question of the day, who's to blame for the handling of COVID-19? So I'll kick it off, and then I'm going to let you take the stage after me, if that's okay with you, Glenn. So I heard your talk about the conversation and communication being the issue. I really think it's more than just communication. I really think there's a bunch of stupidity that happened because a lot of people had these scientific backings before, when they told people, for example, not to wear a face mask. And then they turned around and told you to wear a face mask. And yet they didn't publish anything that actually was scientific or anything. I mean, one of the stories they went off of when they changed their mind was there was a hairstylist that wore 2 face masks, and none of her clients caught it, but everybody at their house caught it. I mean, you cannot replicate it. It's not scientific. It's just a story, right? And they didn't even, I believe it was something like half the people didn't even respond to the questions that they asked them after the incident occurred. Screw that study. So what I really think it comes down to is when you look at the CDC and even the president, they gave guidelines. It's not a law. It's a recommendation. They didn't tell you and give the power to tell you to stay at home. However, all these dumb freaking governors in all the different states decided to make their own rules and actually shut crap down. Here in Texas, they shut down for, what was it, a month? And then they decided, oh, well, we can start opening up. The problem is they told us what we could open up and what we couldn't, including even the city. The city told us we couldn't open our company up. And when we started looking at it, they really couldn't do a damn thing about it. So what did we do? We said, screw you, we're going to stay open. They couldn't do a damn thing.
Good for you.
So, you know, as much as a lot of people want to blame Trump, some of us want to blame Fauci, and you could probably even blame both of them because they sat there and fought back and forth. And I think they were both kind of stupid in letting this go on. Because if I had a company and I told my client, hey, I'll give you 10% off. No, wait, my sales guy said he could only give you 5%. Oh, no, I think I can overrule him. We'll give him 10. Don't you think that customer would walk away from your company? I think so, too. So screw both of them. I really think the governors are to blame for the handling of this because they had more power than the president did in their states. So that's where I stand. You, Glenn, tell me what you think.
got, Glenn?
The deciding factor is how people responded to this. And ultimately, all the responsibility lies with the men and women who put governors and presidents and mayors and county boards into office. So I hold the public responsible not only for the response, their individual and community response to the pandemic, but also for the nightmare that we have in Washington and in places like Austin and Tallahassee. And let me say, I break it down in early wake up call, what the government did, what the media did, what the medical bureaucracy did, and what the public did and did not do. And I'm so glad, I'm so proud of you guys for staying open, John, because Hillsborough County, where Tampa is, we shut everything down. But my third son, Judah, we have a sports bar for tanning. It's called the Sun Bar Tanning Saloon. And it's a tanning joint. It's the world's only known sports bar for tanning. It's amazing. And we have massage. It's just an incredible place. And we started that about 20 years ago. But he runs it now, and he has a real estate office in there. Anyway, he didn't shut down for one day, not for 1 second. And our clients were so thrilled with us that they could have literally, we were the only one in our entire mall that was open except for PetSmart, because, you know, PetSmart is essential too, by the way. Oh, I deal with the whole issue of essential workers in the book as well. But at the end of the day, the bottom line factor was the response of the public. And that's who could change things. And those are the who can comply and roll over. The reason that the Chinese have not rebelled against the Chinese Communist government or the Iranians against the Islamic Republic of Iran, or the reason that we have what we have in this country is because of the people. When the people are united and rise up, all of a sudden there's, instead of 13 colonies, there's the United States of America. So ultimately it's our fault.
Good point. Absolutely good point. Barb?
This is a totally unexpected twist for me because I haven't agreed with very much that you've said this whole time, but I agree with you here. It's the people. And that's kind of what I think. And I agree with something you said before too, that, if we look back at, we have Patrick Henry is in our history, right? But the fact is, we as Americans are deeply uneducated about our own Constitution. We don't know our rights and our history. And I think that lack of and in fact, we're in a society where we're trying to erase the chunks of history that we don't like. We're going to cancel things that we're not proud of. But it turns out the things that we aren't proud of, if you don't know them, you do them again. And here we are. And so I would agree with both of you. This is our fault. We allowed governors to run all over us. We allowed the media to become our decision maker. This is on us.
All right, Alton, give your words of wisdom.
Well, what I'll say is this, that Glenn, Barbara, I love what you're saying. Agree 100%. I will try to not be boring in our podcast and just say what y'all say. So what I'll say is this, is that, okay, if that's the case, then why? And I do want to take a second to just, since we kind of talked about Christians and non-Christians, I just want to say, like, my Christian faith is super important to me, and I'm proud to say it. I think talking about people's fear of death, fear of whatever. I mean, everyone's afraid of something. Businesses shut down because they're afraid to pay a fine. People are afraid to go out because they might get corona, and then they make all these other excuses for things that they're afraid of. And so I would just ask people, like, what are you putting your faith in? I think whether you believe in a superpower or not, we're all putting our faith in something. It's oregano oil. It's going out on the beach and getting some sun, or it's my God is going to protect me, or he's not, and it's my time. But I think we all have to ask that and have a serious question, with ourselves. And another thing that further from that is that our attitude is that final freedom that we have. And I think that's what we're talking about, is our mindset towards adversity. There's always going to be adversity. We always need to have a way to cope and handle that. And it seems like I love freedom, and it's hard for me to look at other people and be like, how do you not love freedom like I love freedom? And I'll tell you why, because I was in my own church, and I love my church. This is the best church that I've ever been to. Each person there, I think, is awesome. I had to stand there and defend why I'm not wearing a mask, and how that has nothing to do with me not loving you. And in my own brain, it's actually, no, I do love you. And I know if you give up the 1 or 2 rights that you actually have left, then what happens? And I had to.
And they still look crazy at times.
Sure. But I think that so many people are unprepared to do the Rosa Parks, right? To sit on the bus and say, yo, I'm done, taking orders from you, and I'm going to sit in this chair. Yeah. And so I guess I just want to leave it with, what y'all said, but to challenge every person who's listening that you are the solution and you're the problem. And it's not someone else's fault. It's your fault. If you're listening to this, it's your fault, or you're part of the solution. And Glenn, I just want to warn you, I'm stealing what you said. It's one of the best things I've ever heard in my entire life. And you totally blew my mind when you said it. You said, look at the unity of the human race with the mask. And I hate the mask. If that's not clear on this podcast, I am wearing it and I don't like it. But the way that you serve that up to me is, what could we do if we all got together on something that could really make a difference?
Yeah, we need some great leadership, you guys, and we've had them in the past, and maybe we'll get some more here in the future. But the reason that your church it's genetically based, I think, but you don't know who's the next person that's going to go, aha, I get it. When, for example, in the Revolutionary War, John Adams, he was in favor of rebelling from Great Britain at first. And then he had an aha moment, et cetera, et cetera. And also, I want to make sure, Alton and all you guys, I'm very careful. I never criticize people for being Christian, but the Christianity all day long. So yeah, of course we should and have the right to think and believe. I don't believe in God. I know there's a God. I mean, I'm looking at representations of God right here in front of me, and this is a hard lesson learned for me as a fundamentalist Messianic Jewish evangelical minister for 12 years, but it was rough to get out. But I want to make sure everybody understands I respect everybody. I love everybody, whether they call themselves an atheist or a Hindu or Christian or Jewish or Islam, whatever. Everybody has their way of expressing themselves. And I really appreciate you guys giving me this platform to express myself. And I love you, Barb, the most.
Oh, man. My heart hurts, Glenn.
Hashtag at least tied. Hashtag at least tied.
You wouldn't believe it, but she's actually a farmer in Washington State. So she needs to convert down to Texas, but you know.
I really do. If we want to talk about important conversions, that really is the one.
Yeah, well, get ready because they're all moving from California to Texas and Florida.
Man, I'm going to cancel you, Glenn.
Hey, actually, so before I let you go, I've got one more important question. You know, being a life coach and a sex coach, give me your private thoughts on what's going to happen going forward. Come on, you got the fun there, right? Come on.
Yes,
Private thoughts.
Yep,
going
low-hanging
forward?
fruit.
I didn't get that. Private thoughts going forward.
It's okay. So what do you predict's going to go?
Wait, no. You got to explain it, John. You can't
You're
just
a sex coach.
because if I didn't get, but what are my private thoughts going forward?
See, it ceases being funny if he has to explain it. So go ahead.
It ain't funny if you have to. I that's why I have the cricket sound effect on Sex and the Pews, because my jokes often don't land, so I just play the crickets then.
I think
It's an old
John
radio.
is talking about here is that when I was checking out your website, John says, "Hey, Glenn is like a life coach and a sex coach, and so I'm on your website. In your menu, it says work with me, and then the sub is private coaching."
Yes.
So I asked John. I said, "Well, wait, what is that exactly?"
Wouldn't you like to know, Alton?
Depends on how much it is. I don't know.
Well, everything's about cost benefits, right?
Oh man. Well, this is going to go down as one of my dumbest moments in the.
No, not at all. There's no dumb questions, only dumb people. You know that, John.
No, but seriously, what's your prediction going forward from right now? How do we solve it? When's it going to get solved?
It's never going to be solved, ever. And by the way, I have it. You can just go to CoachGlennKlein.com for all the stuff, for the podcast, for the coaching, for the book, for everything. And I did a blog at the start of the year, 2020. Remember 2020, it's going to be the year of victory, all this stuff. And I said, nope. Here's what, and I said exactly what was going to happen in 2020. And it's the same thing that happens every year. There's going to be great times. There's going to be tragedy. There's going to be natural disasters. There's going to be fires. There's going to be earthquakes. And people are going to be born, and people are going to get married, and people are going to fall in love, and people are going to kill each other, and people are going to save each other's. It's just a question of what you focus on. So no, there's a pandemic virus vaccine. You realize the flu vaccines, they do 2 years before they know exactly what the flu is going to be. I mean, I think people survive the flu vaccine. They don't, it's like whatever, but no, it's going to be, there's not going to be a cure. We're going to have masks forever. You're going to be seeing, people love the masks. You don't have to share a smile with somebody. It's amazing. If you notice this, you guys, sometimes when people aren't wearing masks and you smile, they don't smile back as much anymore because they're used to not having to smile back because they got the muzzle on. But I'll tell you this. Exactly right. But I'll tell you this. You have an opportunity to have the most joyful, freedom-filled, wonderful life if you will not look to government and, in my opinion, to religion and to those in authority for your sense of well-being and life and happiness. We have the right to pursue these things, not to have these things from the government. Pursue life, liberty, and happiness, and you'll be better off in the rest of 2020. By the way, 2020 gets a bad rap. This didn't start till March. We had 3 damn good months. Remember when we used to be able to go out to the restaurants and go dancing and go to a concert and a hockey game or a ball game? That was it. What's 3 out of 12? That's 25%, right? 20.
Well, I mean,
yeah, still flunking a test if you only get 25%.
Yeah, no, that's true. But part of 2020 was awesome. 2021 is going to be awesome and awful, just like every year.
Well, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yes, Alton.
But we all benefited from the masks because that kept Alton from kissing us, and he had to settle for just hugs in the stores.
Well, he clearly needs some private. He clearly needs some private coaching then, Alton.
We'll start a GoFundMe. It'll be good.
I don't know if John can handle that.
No. All right, guys. It was crazy. It was fun. Barbara, I hope you and Glenn can make up somehow.
Actually, I was guessing that Glenn was going to say one exception to the rule. She can have a muzzle. Just the one. That's I'll be quiet.
Well, listen, I think people should have the right to wear a mask. I ain't doing it.
All right, guys. Y'all say bye.
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 Shalom, everybody.
This has been another episode of The Deciding Factor, giving you food for thought on real life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.